More people every day are ditching animal products, embracing plant-based foods, and speaking up for what matters. With my experience as an international instructor for vegan nutrition and an award-winning author, I interview experts, innovators, and celebrities about the global movement towards a plant-based future. Do you want to learn how to combat the injustice in our food system affecting your health, the animals, and the planet? Well, you're in the right place. It all starts here with Eating Like You Give a Damn. Welcome to the Eating Like You Give a Damn podcast, the place to discover your passion for plant-based living one bite at a time. I'm your host, Stephanie Harder. Do you feel drawn in by the message of making conscious and cruelty-free choices, but find it difficult to identify as any of the labels that we see related to diet and lifestyle today? Or maybe you've tossed around the idea of turning your passion for plant-based living into a business that you love. If so, then you'll relish in this inspo-packed episode because I'm excited to present Kat Mendenhall, who is a boot-loving Texan who grew up among cattle ranchers, became a vegan coach, and set out to change the world without changing her personal Texan style. Kat is on a mission to disrupt the fashion industry by offering a line of cruelty-free cowboy boots and other non-leather Western accessories. Kat believes animals should not suffer for fashion and creates high-end, beautiful vegan products that replace the use of animals without sacrificing quality. She's also a master vegan lifestyle coach and educator, certified by Main Street Vegan Academy, a certified culinary nutrition expert through the Academy of Culinary Nutrition, and is certified in plant-based nutrition through the T. Colin Campbell Foundation offered at Cornell University. In this lively chat, we discuss how the leather industry is mistakenly viewed as a byproduct of the meat industry, and Kat explains how it is actually a co-product driven by consumer demand. The most critical and highly toxic problem with leather affecting human life and why it's the social justice issue no one's talking about, and Kat's proposal to fix it. Kat also shares valuable tips if you find yourself living in an area that doesn't have a vegan presence for support. And she even breaks down exactly what it looks like to work with her as a master vegan lifestyle coach, as well as how you can order your very own custom cowboy or cowgirl boots that are made from non-toxic, high-quality, and sustainable vegan leather. Plus, Kat has a cool collection of Texas vegan recipes to give you for free, so be sure to listen out for that towards the end. And before we get into the fun with Kat, I want to tell you about a book I wrote called The Skinny on Eating Like You Give a Damn: How to Embrace a Plant-Based Diet, Combat Injustice, and Be a Rebel for Compassion one bite at a time. This book is your roadmap to help you get from where you're currently eating to eating healthier and kinder, even if you could never imagine giving up your favorite foods like cheese, eggs, or bacon. You get my best health tips, some of which I teach in an online vegan nutrition health coach certification course, as well as how to handle social situations, including friends and family who don't always understand why we would rebel against something that's considered normal in our society. You also get my downloadable plant-based food guide as a bonus. And a portion of the book sales goes to helping the animals at Florida Rescue Farm. The Skinny on Eating Like You Give a Damn can be found online wherever books are sold, or simply go to eatinglikeyougivadamn.com/book to order your paperback or Kindle copy today. Here to get you fired up about food and fashion. Here's my chat with Kat. Kat Mendenhall, my love, what is up, girl?
Hey, Stephanie, so good to see you and talk to you today.
Oh man, it's so good to see and talk to you too. I'm so excited that one of our mutual friends kind of brought us together. And as soon as she said that you had been through the Main Street Vegan Academy, I was like, oh yeah, I got to talk to this girl because I love me some Victoria Moran.
Yes, but both of the women that we have in common are fantastic women,
Oh,
people that
yes.
I completely admire. So yeah, I appreciate the introduction to you because your energy and just your spirit, listening to some of your other podcasts before I got the chance to talk to you today was just like made me so inspired and just I felt good about, like I said, your energy.
Oh, cool. Thanks. So I love your energy too. So let's break it down for
Let's
some
do
people.
it.
Let's give them some of this awesome energy that we've got going on here. So what I like to do with my guests in the very beginning of the show is, kind of give them a little peek into your personal experience in leading a vegan lifestyle, because I know that journey is so different for everybody, right?
Right.
And because we all come from different backgrounds, different cultures, we grew up in different places, we had different things that we were learning. And so I really want to hear your story. And so tell me a little bit about where you were, what your diet was like, what your attitude was about health before you discovered veganism.
Right. Okay. So I am from Dallas, Texas, born and raised here. And I probably feel this the typical stereotype of a Texan, where I grew up in a family of meat eaters. In fact, my both of my grandparents had working cattle ranches. They were farmers. So definitely exposed to the animal environment and the culture that people associate with Texans. But I was an athlete, and so I felt like as an athlete and an exercise enthusiast, I had a really good diet. And it was just something that I always was kind of interested in, nutrition and what helped me perform better as an athlete and an exercise enthusiast. So when I got into, I'm going to date myself here, into my early 40s, this was 10 years ago, I just didn't feel good. And no matter how I changed my diet, like tweaked it to help me perform better and running or exercising, I just couldn't feel any better. I had low energy. I had a lot of digestive issues. I was having some nerve issues in one leg. Began a journey of going to several doctors, which I am luckily in my past had not spent much time at outside of the usual things. And, really the doctors could not give me an answer. And they would ask a little bit about my diet, but basically they would just say, okay, let's make sure that you're getting, B12 because I was having this nerve issue that they couldn't really find anything wrong with. But they really didn't dissect or break down to examine anything that I was eating or how food might be relating to how I was feeling. And so I was really frustrated, and I just was sitting home one afternoon, turned on the tube, and here I see Alicia Silverstone on the TV talking about this book that she just came out with called The Kind Diet. And she was mentioning vegetarian, being a vegetarian, and then she became a vegan. And I was like, what is that? Like, I don't even know a vegetarian. I certainly don't know any vegans. I don't know what vegan means. But just her enthusiasm about this way that she was eating intrigued me. So I went right out, bought the book, read it straight through. And immediately I said, okay, I'm cutting out all meat and all dairy. And so I did that, and within 2 weeks, I felt completely different. My nerve issue was gone. My digestive system was working properly. I suddenly had this burst of energy, and I thought, oh my gosh, like, this way I'm eating is making me feel so good. I'm not going back to the other stuff at all. So I just
Mm.
completely did it from kind of a feel better performance issue, or to help me better in my exercising and running and feeling better health from a health perspective. And that's kind of where my journey started. But again, at this point, 10 years ago, I did not know a vegetarian. I did not know another vegan. And so I had to research on the internet. I was reading, there were a few vegan bloggers. I was able to learn a lot from some vegan bloggers. But I found myself sitting at work all day in my corporate job, looking up vegan recipes, trying to figure out how I could cook better, cook vegan, and I began, of course, as we do in our journey, started learning more about factory farming and how animals are raised for our food, and getting more in depth to the health perspectives of eating meat and versus eating a plant-based diet. And that's really where my journey started.
So did you find at some point that there was like one particular thing that really struck an emotional chord with you? Was it more leaning towards the health benefits, or was it something related to what you were uncovering in factory farming that really kind of set you to be like, okay, this is it for me. I'm learning this. This is it. Not going back. What was that moment like?
It really was just the health. It was just for me feeling better physically. And, also, like I said, I was a big runner. So being able to run better, have better recovery. And I thought, wow, like I wish I would have known this, 20, 25 years ago when I was a competitive runner. And wow, what could I have done, had I known? So that really was the trigger for me, is just how much better I felt eating this way, eating
Hmm.
vegan. And I was just doing that for 4 years, really not thinking too much more about, even though I was kind of aware of the factory farming, but I looked at it more of just like, oh yeah, that's really bad, but I'm not eating animals anymore. So, that's good for me. But I really didn't know anything more about how our, eating animals contributes to not only harm for the animals in the way that they're treated, but also the environment. So after 4 years of eating vegan and still wearing leather and still contributing in a lot of, not nice ways to not being vegan, I decided that I wanted to take my passion for veganism and do something more with it. I was like, okay, I grew up, 40 something years not knowing this. So there's probably a lot of other people around me that don't know this information either. How can I be an expert? How can I share this information with other people? And it just was like driving me nuts because I wanted to know everything I could about veganism. I didn't know where to start because, again, after being vegan 4 years, I still didn't really have a friend that was even vegan. I just,
Hmm.
again, was like listening to blogger or reading bloggers. And so the first thing I did was I quit my job. So I had been in an industry for over 25 years, and I decided to quit my job so that I could focus on figuring out what I was going to do about sharing with people about being vegan. And it all sounded absurd to a lot of people. They thought had lost my mind and I had joined a cult or, gone off the deep end.
Oh, right. I can imagine,
Yeah,
right?
especially here in Texas.
Yeah.
And so, my family didn't understand. Nobody in my family was vegan and they didn't get it. And so I went back to college and I was taking some summer courses. And during the summer courses, I was around, of course, a lot of younger people than me, and they were all just super excited about their career paths, like what they were studying in college and doing maybe some internships in that area of their passion. And I came home one day and I was just like, gosh, I've never felt that way about my job. And I'm like, sorry, boss, but I want to feel like the job I'm doing is I'm taking my passion and putting it out there in the world and doing something good with it. So I sit there and I'm like, okay, again, what are you passionate about? I'm passionate about being vegan. I'm passionate about cooking and sharing that with other people. And I just happened to see on one of the bloggers that I follow, JL Fields, that she had gone to this Main Street Vegan Academy. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is a school that you can actually go to and learn all this. And I immediately looked it up, contacted the founder, Victoria Moran. She just happened to have one spot left in the next class, which literally was like 3 weeks away. And I said, enroll me, I'm coming, let's do this. And that's, that's really like, I was like, I have no idea why I'm going. I don't know what to expect, but this is just where the universe is leading me. And so
Yeah.
when I got well, actually, before I got to the academy, I was just thinking about packing and growing up, like I said, growing up in Texas, growing up around cattle ranching, I had this very disgusting collection of leather cowboy boots.
Oh man, so you were the girl in the cowgirl boots, and you probably had the big buckle and the big hat,
I,
right?
I, I had, I've gone through a period where I had all that, yes. At this
That's
particular
awesome.
stage, I kind of had ditched the hat and the buckle, but I still had the boots.
Gotcha.
But I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've never been around a group of 25 other vegans. Is this going to be appropriate? Like, what if I'm frowned upon? So the seed was planted that, like, okay, suddenly I'm thinking about not what I'm eating because I've got that part handled, but like, what am I wearing and what am I carrying on my arm as a purse and what am I, what are my feet put into? And I started having like all this anxiety about it. So I decided not to take any of my leather because another thing that happened before I got to the academy, I was driving down a country road one day and I got behind a cattle trailer. And this sight was not unusual to me growing up around cattle ranching. But on this particular day, as my car was getting closer to the trailer, there was cows in the trailer and they were wobbly and they were, looking out through the back of the trailer. And I just felt like a couple of cows, their eyes were just piercing right through my windshield, into my
Mm,
soul, into my heart, because I knew where they were headed.
yeah.
Having grown up around cattle ranching, I knew that they were probably headed to sell, which probably from that sale they would be taken or either straight to slaughter or either to a factory farm.
Hmm.
And it hit me like just a brick. I had to pull over. I got very emotional about it, and I was like, oh wow, again another seed. I don't know why I feel this way, but I just don't think probably wearing leather to this vegan thing is okay. And so then when I got to the academy, I learned everything about veganism, from the nutritional part, from cooking to the history, to traveling as a vegan, to eating out as a vegan, all the way to vegan fashion. And in the vegan fashion segment, that's when I learned about cows are raised solely for leather. And that's a very toxic, deadly industry that makes billions of dollars every year. So I sat there and I thought, wow, that's, it's a no brainer now. I can no longer support the animal leather industry or wear it. And that kind of is what inspired me to move from, where I thought I was just being vegan for health and a diet, not a diet like to lose weight, but just like a diet to be healthy internally and to feel good,
Hmm.
to my mind shifted to, wow, this is so much bigger. And, I've got to get to work on all these other areas of why we choose a vegan lifestyle.
Yeah. And that's really amazing to hear from your perspective how you started to make these little moments. It's almost like the light bulb just kind of shone a little bit brighter and brighter and brighter in your head as you started making all of these connections, from the truck where you saw the cows to, relating it to like, okay, well, what am I wearing? What does that represent? And even to, having that moment of anxiety about like you're about to go into a school full of other vegans and you're wondering like, okay, what if I like do something wrong or say something wrong? I'm wearing something wrong. It's interesting to hear all of the different ways that the meat, dairy, and egg industry, as well as fashion, it's just so ingrained in our culture
Yes.
that we don't even know what we're contributing to all these years growing up. And then all of a sudden somebody tells us and we're just like shocked. We're shocked as shit. We're like, well, now I got to change my whole freaking life in order to live accordance with what I value, which is compassion to all beings.
Yes, perfectly said. Yes. Because again, I grew up, you talked about culture. I grew up in a culture where, meat was the the main face, and I say face now because I know that that meat did have a face on my
Hmm.
plate and every meal. I grew up accepting that, we wear animal skin, we wear animal fur. It's like common, and it was definitely here in Texas where, it is part of our culture, a strong culture in supporting those type of industries. And I think, when I was seeking an answer for my health, I learned something through this initial journey, which I still share with people and carry it with me, that, the first thing that I had to do was I had to seek, right? I was seeking an answer. I didn't know what the answer was. I tried to go the traditional path, medical doctors, and that wasn't it wasn't giving me the answers that I needed, but I was seeking. And then when I did learn something or heard something that was outside, my former knowledge and experience, I was open to it. And I think people have to be open. You can't just say, oh, well, that's not how we do things here. Or that's not how I grew up. No, you have to be open. And then you have to be willing to change. And I think that's the change is what is the hardest part of that little trifecta there, is that it's just it's hard for people to be, they can be seeking and they can be open, but then when it comes to change, they're like, oh, okay, but I've been doing it this way for so long. And I think once people give it a try, and whether it's, they're trying from a health standpoint or an animal advocate standpoint, or they're concerned, as many people are today. We see more mainstream people who are, I say mainstream, but like more people who have not gone vegan yet, or aren't really care about being vegan, but who are really concerned about the environment, right? Because of all, it's something that's prominent in the news. Everybody's talking about it, whether you're a vegan or not. It doesn't really matter. We all contribute to the suffering of our planet. And so, you have to reach people where they're at, but if they can be willing to do one thing in their own home or with their own body or their own self to contribute to less harm, then that's how you have to approach people. And then hopefully they have the same journey similar to what I did. As I started in one area, but then as years went by, I got the full load, mother load, and now I'm waving the vegan flag all over the place.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that too, because man, if anybody had told me, say 11 years ago, that I would be vegan today,
Yeah.
when I started that journey, I would have looked at them like they had three heads. I'm like,
Yes.
are you crazy? I mean, I love my eggs. It's one of my favorite foods in the world. I love my cheese. Everybody loves cheese. How can you give that up?
Right.
And fish was kind of like the one thing I couldn't imagine giving up,
Yeah.
So the whole thing about becoming a vegan was, to me, it was just like, oh, you're just putting a label on that. Everybody loves labels. And I never really got into wanting to be labeled and as anything that people already can think that they have figured out. They think that they know what it is.
Right.
So I fought it for a long time, and then finally just one day I woke up and I was just like, you know what? I'm embracing this vegan thing, because it really does identify how far I've come in life with the way that I view the world, the way that I view animals, the way that I view my own body, as far as how
Right.
much I respect it now, how much I really value this one life that I've been given. And it's like my whole perspective has changed since, several years ago. So I really love hearing you as you're unfolding this all for me too, because I can relate so much. And I feel like a lot of listeners can as well.
And I love your title of your book and your podcast, Eating Like You Give a Damn, because you talked about labels. And I always say labels are for tin cans. And when we try to put people in a box, you're vegan, you're vegetarian, you're flexitarian, you're pescatarian, you're following the keto diet, whatever, low carb, no carb, all these different labels. And it's confusing for people because they're like,
Yeah.
okay, what's the right answer? And my journey, like yours, I cut out the meat and dairy. It took a little bit longer for the eggs. It took a little bit longer for the fish. But I slowly was just not eating animals. And then when I went to the Main Street Vegan Academy and I learned all these different aspects of veganism, that's where my mind shifted to yes, eat. I mean, you created the words, but that's how I felt. Kat, eat like you give a damn. Because you do. You've learned now that you give a damn. You care about these precious animals, and you care about your body. You care about yourself. You care about, your neighbors and your friends who are affected by the environment. So
Yes.
That's really a great little tag and saying that for a lot of people, just, it's just straightforward. Because it's like, okay, let's not say eat vegan. Let's not just say eat this way. Let's eat like you give a damn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I know, and all my vegan community probably not going to love me saying this, but the message of go vegan, it's almost like telling somebody to, go be a Christian
Right.
or go be a Muslim or go, I don't know, go eat poop, whatever. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's like it's very pushing onto other people. And I feel very much like I want people to feel invited to this because it really is for everybody, especially today with the wealth of knowledge that we have as it relates to health, because health, animals, environment, most people care about one
Right.
or all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe not all at the same time. I know for me, like I'm not ashamed to say it. I came from sort of a selfish mindset just because I didn't know. But
Right.
then once I started to learn, then my perspective shifted. And now, yeah, that like the environment was kind of the last thing to come around for me. And now, yeah, I care about these things, I mean, what are we leaving behind for kids and grandkids? And so, yeah, so everybody can give a damn about something, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I like your point too. Like, yeah, we definitely we could go into some controversial areas today and piss off a lot of our vegan friends. And that's definitely not, I'm the least confrontational person in the world.
Oh, yeah, me too.
But I'm also very vocal. So those two,
That's an interesting
yeah,
dichotomy right
those
there.
two sometimes collide. But, we have to, and this has happened, right? I mean, we've seen, the vegan world or the world change towards their perspective of veganism. Since I've been vegan for 10 years, it's completely changed, where I thought even in the beginning, I'm like, oh my God, are people going to think I'm a hippie, or do they think I'm smoking weed? Weed, by the way, people, weed is not legal in Texas yet, so we still have those stereotypes.
Darn.
But, I just thought, people are going to think I'm like this weird thing, because that's what I thought about vegetarians and vegans. Even when I was learning about them, I'm like, oh, wow, these people are like growing their own tofu and doing all this weird milking their own nuts. And,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just, but
And now we're the weirdos.
yeah, but now I think people see that vegans are doctors, they're lawyers, they're moms, they're dads, they're children, they're normal functioning people that are a big part of our society and have a lot to contribute. So I think those like initial stereotypes I had and maybe what other people think are starting to wash away, because there's so many awesome vegan people out there doing amazing things, from doctors to writers to cooks, to vegan fashion companies. So I like to think, my hope is that the perception's changing.
It definitely is. And I really feel like, as people like particularly find this show or any other sort of avenue to be able to learn about what this whole vegan thing is about today, it's very different than it was like 20, 30 years
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Right.
Now we're seeing a lot, like you're saying, the doctors, we're seeing all these Olympic athletes,
Mm-hmm.
professional bodybuilders.
Right.
I mean, we're seeing all these really cool people, celebrities out the wazoo
Mm-hmm.
are speaking out. And it's so cool that we can see that, whether you're super urban and you love hip hop, or, your country, you're from Texas or somewhere from the South and you're just like super country and you like that vibe, or, it doesn't matter the walk of life anymore. I mean,
Right.
and we're talking specifically American here, but all over the world, even different cultures. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people are starting to really wake up
Yes.
and realize that this is the time to start this sort of awakening and start to implement these changes. So yeah, people are coming around to it, which is great to see.
It's exciting. It is.
It is
It's
an
so
exciting.
exciting.
Such an exciting time right now. So I'm very curious to hear, since you are a Texan,
Yes.
like the vibe there, right? So I think most Americans, I don't know about other people that are listening around the world right now, but most Americans kind of get the whole, like the Texan mindset. So what are some of the challenges that you experienced growing up in Texas and becoming, from learning how to become a vegan and eat plant exclusive to actually starting to talk about it and teach about it? What are some of the challenges you ran into?
Well, initially, just not having that support. that maybe, other cities who actually there are vegetarians and vegans and they come out of the closet, where I think there was probably like a lot of vegans and vegetarians that were around me, but like nobody wanted to come out of the closet and say they were. So in the beginning, it was hard because I didn't have maybe the support that a lot of people have today. Like I said, I read blogs. I bought some cookbooks, but I just didn't have a way. I don't even think there was a podcast, so I just didn't have a way to really grow and learn as fast as I want to, but also just to, if my go to Thanksgiving with my family and I cook 50% of the meal and then they don't eat it, which happened, and
Wow.
then I come home crying and upset. How does someone help me with that? I just didn't have that. So I was really kind of like this lone ranger out here, riding through the prairie land here in Texas, what people think, we have. Just winging it and trying to figure it out myself. So when, 5 years into it, when I went to the academy, I was just blown away because I was like, oh, you people are so lucky. You people that live in New York, you people that live in LA, you people that live in Chicago, and all these big cities that have tons of vegan restaurants, you have a strong vegan community, you have meetups, you have festivals. And then I found out really in Dallas, we do have a Texas Veggie Fair. We're going on our 10th year this year. So it just has started the year I went vegan, but I missed it the first year because I didn't even know about it. Now we have one of the largest vegan festivals in the whole country. We have like over 15,000 people come in one day. So that's in Dallas, Texas, people.
Nice.
And we have tons of vegan restaurants now. You go out to eat and there's usually vegan options, on most menus, or somebody can make something. We have a strong vegan meetup group. I'm the organizer of the Vegan Lady Boss group here in Dallas. So I've seen this huge shift over the 10 years, to where like in the beginning there was nothing, and I couldn't go out to eat because we had like one raw restaurant and one all vegan restaurant, but then nothing, you would go say vegan and people would just look at you with their eyes glassed over. And
Mm-hmm.
I was always like envious of the people that were living in cities where they had more access to all the cool vegan stuff. But then I started thinking like, okay, Kat, you have an opportunity to create something in your own community. And sometimes, we long to be in another community, but yet Dallas needed somebody. And I'm not saying I solely did it because I didn't, but just through some different projects, I saw this journey over the 10 years where people who were focused on doing something here in Dallas and not trying to escape to these other cities where they could feel more comfortable, in the strong vegan communities, we stepped out and said, hey, we want our city to look like that in 5 years or 10 years. And that's really what's happened to Dallas. When I travel around to different events or, something that I'm doing, and people will be like, oh, vegan in Texas? How do you even do that? So it's funny because it takes me off guard because I think, first of all, do people still have this really, to me, very antiqued idea of what Texans are? Because we have big cities and, we have like all the amenities that everybody else in the world has. But I think there's this like love affair kind of with Texas all over. And people are just idolized by the thought that we, are walking down the street with jeans and boots on and big tall hats. And, we're like a sideshow from the Dallas show back in the 80s, And so I'm still like today very, very surprised when people are always like, oh my gosh, how can you be vegan in Texas? How can you? But it's because grassroots people who I always like to say Texas was built on pioneers. They really were. They were trailblazers and pioneers, and that's what Texas is made out of. And so people who are here now are the same. They're trailblazers. So we've had a lot of people in the Dallas community who became vegan, who decided they want to be trailblazers for creating a strong vegan community in Dallas, and that's what's happened. So long story short is I tell people it doesn't matter where you live. You don't have to live in a big city with a vegan restaurant every corner like some people have access to. Start where you're at. Start create a meetup group for vegans. Go to your local restaurants, have them add a vegan option, or talk to them. Show them how they can take ingredients that they already have and make a vegan dish. Start within 2 blocks of your house. Start within 2 miles of your house. Maybe start within 20 miles of your house. But you have to create a vegan community where you're at. And then by doing that, at some point, my hope is that we'll all be connected. Right here, we're in the United States. So it's like, okay, it won't be anymore like, wow, all these vegan cool things are happening in LA, or wow, New York's got all this stuff going on,
Yeah.
for the vegan community. It'll be just like, no, wow, there's somebody living in rural, Tyler, Texas here, and they have access to vegan food. They have access to vegan restaurants. They have a vegan meetup group. Maybe they have a vegan lady boss group. So you just have to start where you are, and develop that.
That is so inspirational and so important for people to hear too, because I know that a lot of listeners, they live in, rural areas most of the time. They don't really know where to go, or like you're talking about, kind of like maybe fantasize about, oh, well, if I lived in LA, or if I lived in, you know what I mean? Fill in the blank. But yeah, this is so important to hear, and to just, kind of get out of that comfort zone a little bit. Once you find yourself in this place where you're crowding out animal products because you really want to follow this lifestyle, and you find it particularly difficult in your area, like, this is such good advice to just go ahead and start building that community right where you live.
Yep.
It's beautiful. Now, I know that because you are a purveyor of vegan goods, non-leather, anti-leather, let's say,
Right.
I know that listeners have got to be really questioning, like, what is vegan leather, and why is, like, how is leather even important right now when the show is about eating like you give a damn? So how does leather tie into the meat industry?
That's a great question, and I will give you the answer that that I had the question, 5 years ago. Is I thought animal leather was a byproduct of the meat industry. So I thought, okay, even though I'm not eating meat anymore, the cow's already dead, and it's probably just, they got to do something with the skin. So there's my pair of boots, that I had in my closet at the time, or my belt, or my purse, or the leather seats in my car.
Sounds like a reasonable assumption, though.
Right. So that was kind of like that helped me justify. And so I was okay with that for 4 years until I really learned the truth. And what the truth is, and anybody can research it, is that animals are raised solely for their skin and fur. So it's a billions of dollar industry alone outside of the meat industry. So it's not a byproduct, it's a co-product of factory farming. And so, these cows are not treated any better than cows that are raised for beef. They live in these horrible conditions. So, the same things that happen in factory farming happens in farming for cows that are raised for their leather or their skin. Not only that, the people that work in the factories, the tanneries that preserve the skin. And so when I saw a video about that process of actually how they take the raw skins and they put it into these chemicals, and there's over 252 chemicals that go into preserving these skins. And just seeing that process and thinking about that, I was like, I never want leather to touch my skin again. I mean, if you can put a patch on your arm to reduce your need to quit smoking, which a lot of people have to do, then what makes you think that wearing leather that was preserved by over 200 chemicals is not seeping into your skin? It's toxic. So now I'm not saying I don't have any scientific studies on that, but that's just like my own mentality. I mean, think about it. What goes into our skin is absorbed into our bloodstream. So it's harmful to the animals. It's toxic to the workers that work in the tanneries. Most of these tanneries have young children working in these tanneries, and they don't often live to be over 30 years old because they get some type of deadly disease. And then the runoff from these tanneries, the chemicals are washed into local water systems, again, causing disease and death to the people that live in these very poor rural countries. Predominantly, India has a lot of tanneries. So it's just not good for humans. It's not good, definitely, for the animals. And it's horrible for the environment. It's responsible for, deforesting and just other things that makes us choosing not to support the animal leather industry a good argument. And the other side of that is today, because of technology, we have these amazing alternative materials that we didn't have 10 years ago. I mean, it's changed very quickly, but just like we have to update our iPhone because of technology, the same thing is happening in other industries. So just because wearing leather goes back, and I always want to clarify, wearing animal leather goes all the way back to, the beginning of time. That's not what we have to do anymore, because we have these materials. I call it vegan leather because that's what it is to me. It looks, it feels, it acts just like leather. In fact, when I'm at an event and I carry a little box that has my material scraps in it so that people can look at it and feel it. Do you know how many times somebody will hold it up to their nose and smell it? Because they want to know, does it smell like animal leather? And guess what, people?
Right.
No. Because now if I smell animal leather, it makes me almost want to throw up. But
Oh, it's so interesting that you say that because I feel the same way now too. I mean, ew.
yeah, it's just so yeah, again, my mission is to educate people on, first of all, why the animal leather industry is so bad, the fact that we have alternative materials that are durable, pliable, water, stain resistant, work, feel just like animal leather. And so we no longer have to support that industry and the suffering that is causing to billions and billions of animals and to people. I don't know what studies have been about, the disease and the infections and the cancers and things that happen to people working in factory farming. I'm sure there's incidents, but the tanneries are just so toxic and dirty that it's a human crisis to me. It's not even,
Hmm.
if you don't care about the animal part, think about, this is a cruelty to humans. So to me,
Right.
that's not right either. So why choose that over having an alternative that is beautiful and gorgeous and works just like animal leather? And there's no reason why we shouldn't be supporting that, and why every animal leather maker good out there shouldn't be using these materials. There's just no reason, because it's more sustainable, it's not hurting animals, and it's definitely not affecting humanity.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
What's sad is that this is a livelihood for a lot of people, but
Right.
again, we have to do things just like we take cattle ranchers now and we try to convert them into growing and doing other things on their farms that don't affect animals. This industry too, we have to take those workers and teach those people. It's not like, okay, we're just shutting this down and sorry bud, you're out of a job and you and your family can't eat anymore. It's no, how do we take this industry and get rid of it, because it's a supply and demand. So if
Hmm.
consumers, we stop buying, they're going to stop producing as much. And then we teach these people there's different ways, different things that you can do to earn money, and take these I don't even want to call it a farm, but I guess it would be an animal leather farm, and turn it into something that would not be as detrimental as it is today.
And I love that we are problem solvers in that way because there seems to be probably this notion that, especially from some people who really see veganism through a different kind of lens than I guess we see it as we're living this lifestyle. But for people to say like, oh, you don't even care about people, all you care about is animals, and don't you know humans are the top of the food chain, we're the intellectuals, and it's like, yeah, we're intellectual enough to also solve the problems, such as how do we convert these businesses whose these families livelihoods are all built on centuries years old businesses that relate to animals and animal byproducts. We are humanitarians too. We really care about these issues, and we can learn how to convert these things into other profitable businesses that don't exploit animals.
Right. And I think that's an important conversation to have with people because we do get that perception is that, you know, you just love the animals, you don't care about people like you said. And to some extent, honestly, I'll speak for myself, that it's true. I love animals and I think a lot of people are assholes. So, um, and I don't apologize for that, but at the same time, yes, like there has to be, you can't just go, and like I said, even with the meat industry, you can't just go and erase, every farm out there and every person that's raising cattle and selling it, even if it ends up at a factory farm, because I have friends, I have family that are still very involved in this industry, and they may not be like hands-on at the factory farm, but they're like, oh well, look, our cows are fine because they're just out here eating grass and eating hay, and we're taking care of them, and then they take them to sell, and then it's like the door's shut, and they don't get what happens behind that door, and what the suffering or any kind of condition or where that cow ends up. So there's a huge disconnection between that part, but then also as educators, which I think if you're a vegan and you have a platform, and I have a platform with my vegan fashion and my coaching, my cooking. So, I feel like I have to use that in a positive way. I'm not out here to condemn people because, first of all, I wasn't always vegan. You just heard my story. I've only been vegan 10 years. But sharing my story with other people, it reminds me that, yes, I wasn't always vegan, but it also humbles me because I have to approach people from the aspect of, yes, they're not vegan, and I wasn't vegan at one time, and I had the blinders on, and I didn't know all this. But you have to continue that conversation of, you can't do that, that's not right, you can't eat that, you can't kill animals, whatever you're trying to get rid of with, but here's what we can do. So there has to be a
Mhm.
solution. If you're going to dissolve something, then you have to replace it with something else. And people want to hear that no matter what it is. So with I'm involved with a sanctuary that we have here in Texas called the Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. And
I was going to ask
yeah,
you about that. Cool.
yeah. So for your listeners that don't know, I encourage them to look it up. But it's called Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, and they were working cattle ranch. And then the wife went vegan. Renee Kingstonen, she's a friend of mine. She went vegan. She convinced her husband to go vegan. And there's a whole story there which people can read about. But they are now a full working farm sanctuary here in the middle of Texas. But Renee last year started what's called the RAP program, RAP, Ranchers Advocacy Program. And their mission is to go out with a team and help ranchers that want to get rid of their working animal farms and help them transition to some type of revenue producing farm. So just to give
Nice.
you a brief example, there's a family in Arkansas who are raising chickens, and they went vegan due to a health issue. Didn't like that they were still in the chicken business after they learned about, being vegan and all the aspects of veganism, but they didn't know what to do. And so a lot of people will reach out, not just to Renee, but other sanctuaries. They'll get calls and they're like, okay, we have these animals. We don't want to be involved in animal business anymore. What do we do? So Renee started this program where, again, they get involved. They go through a whole process to where now these chicken farmers have gotten rid of all their chickens over a period of time, and they're now growing mushrooms.
That's
So,
awesome.
it's like you said, it's been in their family for years. It was
Yeah.
a working chicken ranch for many, many decades. And it's like, you just don't go in and pull the plug on it. They had to go through a process, but then also, okay, what do we do when we've been doing this our whole life? How do we replace that income? I mean, people still got to live. They have mortgages just like me. They have mortgages, they have car payments, they got to send their kids to school, they got to put food on the table. So you have to extend the conversation. It's like we just can't say, oh, yeah, stop all this because it's wrong. You have to go into, yes, stop it because it's wrong, but then here's the alternative. So just like with
Yes.
the vegan leather.
Exactly. Yes. With those solutions. Fantastic and very well said.
Thank you.
So I know that because you mentioned your cooking and coaching, I know listeners are going to want to know, like, what does it look like for someone to work with you as a vegan and lifestyle coach, and with your cooking instruction, and who your ideal client is? So what does your business look like?
Okay, great. So that's the fun part of I mean, making boots is fun, but I really love helping people transition or adopt a vegan lifestyle. And so I just meet again people where they're at. You know, what are you looking to achieve? What is your goal? Where are you at today? What changes have you made? And then I start working with those people in the different areas of like, okay, maybe you're a business traveler and you're traveling a lot and you're eating out. Okay, let's take that segment and let me teach you how to eat out as a vegan. Maybe you're I'm going to pick on the guys because I have a lot of men clients because they seem to have need more help than women. But I'll just leave that there. But another client, you know, he's middle age. He's got some health concerns. Doesn't want to have to get on blood pressure medicine. Doesn't want to take cholesterol medicine. Knows he needs to eat better. Goes to the store. Goes to the farmer's market. Buys all these fruits and vegetables, and then he pushes them into the bottom drawers of the refrigerator and then hasn't touched them in a week and they've all rotted. So, you know, how do I work with that guy to do a meal plan so that he stays on track during the week, how to buy and prep his fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, so forth, so that he can make those meals or have those meals pre-made throughout the week so he stays on track. So those are kind of like my ideal clients, people looking into transition or adopt a vegan lifestyle, or somebody who wants to. And I say on the food side, I 90%, I would say, of the people I work with tell me they don't want to be vegan. I don't want to be vegan. I just want to eat better. Okay,
Mm.
that's fine. I'll help you eat better. And so, again, I think there's so much confusion about nutrition and, you know, the right diet that
Oh, yeah.
we should be consuming. And like I said, I hate that word diet, but
Mm-hmm.
eating vegan is not a diet. Eating vegan is about having compassion for another being and not wanting to consume that. So with my cooking and coaching, I'll meet with people. I'll go through again their goals and what they want to achieve, and then we'll kind of put together a process of the areas that they need to work on or want to work on. And then sometimes I do cooking classes, but sometimes a lot of the cooking I do is actually in individual homes where I'll come into their home, we'll take their meal plan. If they need help going to the grocery store, I'll do that with them. But we'll set at their house and we'll do the whole meal prepping and then the cooking and then putting it in glass containers so that they can have their meals during the week. And I really enjoy that. That's a really fun part of my activism.
I love that. That's awesome. And it's so cool that you have fun with your job. I love that.
Yeah, I know. I just hate that, right? That I know. I love my job. I mean, I love, that, like I said, the boots are fun and I love working with people. Recently I had a girl contact me and she said, "Hey, I've been, following you and I'm getting married in November and I want boots for my wedding." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I get to be a part of someone's biggest day of their life." And it just makes me so happy that I was able to accomplish this, but that, I'm putting something out there positive in the universe and making people's boot dreams come true, by having a vegan alternative.
Oh, that's so awesome. So then tell us more about the boots. What does that look like? So say, we're not in Texas and I want to go online and I want to order some awesome vegan boots and maybe some belts and maybe some other accessories too. Tell us about what you have and what does the ordering process look like?
Great. So, first of all, anybody can wear cowboy boots. So, you don't have to be a cowgirl or a cowboy. They're also for city slickers. So, I just always put that disclaimer out there that boots are always in style, they never go out of style. But basically, what you'll do is you'll go online to my website, which is katmendenhall.com, just my name. We have choices that you can choose from. Do you want a 12-inch standard high boot that people are familiar with, traditional cowboy look style? Do you want a bootine, which is a shorter boot with a zipper? Or do you want a peewee, which is kind of like a standard boot but just shorter? So you pick your style, you pick your stitching pattern. We have a various types of stitching patterns that you could choose from. So something very simple to something a little bit more elaborate, depending on your style. You have a choice of vegan leather. So we have a whole slew of vegan leathers you can choose from. Do you want pink boots? Do you want red boots? Do you want gray? You want to go with traditional black? We have everything in between. We also have a vegan suede, which is amazing. It's the closest thing to vegan suede I've ever seen. It's just, and they make gorgeous boots. But so you choose your material, and then you're able to change the toe box. So do you want round? Do you want pointy? Do you want square? You can change your heel height. You basically like build your own boot.
Nice.
And then you just submit the order. And yeah, we do have accessories. I have Western style belts. I have like a standard business type style belt. I just kind of started dabbling in making some vegan message wear with jean jackets and also bandanas. So those are just kind of little fun things I do on the side. And what's funny is when I was in my corporate job, I never thought I was a creative person because I just was like, I was in a kind of a technology industry, and it was like, okay, I'm work for a company that has a commodity and we sell this commodity and, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't very exciting. It wasn't very, luxurious or anything. It was just what it is. And so when I went on this, vegan mission to find my passion and how I could take my passion and turn it into a career, I suddenly was like just flooded with all these ideas. And I'm like, where did this come from? Like, I've had my creativity suppressed for 50 years. What happened? So now it's really fun because I just, I'm constantly have these ideas. It doesn't mean that all the ideas come to fruition. Some of the ideas I'm like, oh yeah, that may be one I just keep in my own home. But it's definitely fun doing something that I know. And I like this line. I heard this from Victoria Moran, actually. She said, when you're working in favor of the universe will respond accordingly. So I feel like now, like the work I do is definitely in favor of the universe. And so, a lot of things just fall in my lap and fall into place. And it doesn't mean it's easy, because people know starting your own business, running your own business is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my whole life.
Amen, sister.
So it's, and it does, I'm not trying to like sugarcoat anything here, because that could be a whole nother podcast if we were talking about running a business or starting a business. But I definitely like the way that I looked at it is, how can I change the world without changing my personal style? And so when I think about that, of like, how do I want to do better for the universe, do better for the world, but yet I can still stay true to myself and my ethics and my style and my personality. And that's kind of my mission when I look at everything that I decide to either start or do, whether it's from cooking, coaching, or making a non-leather or vegan fashion product.
Fantastic. That's absolutely extraordinary. I'll make sure that I have your website listed in the show notes. But Kat, are there any other parting words of wisdom that you have for listeners before we say goodbye?
Well, a lot of people will ask me, whether it's from the coaching or the cooking, or starting a big vegan business with a product, is, how do you do that? What are some simple steps to do that? And I always tell people, and I learned this just by going through the process, is just identify your passion. That was the first thing I had to do. What was I passionate about? And if you have to make a list, make a list. I was passionate about being vegan. I was passionate about being cooking. I knew I was passionate about boots because I had a, disgusting collection. But, until I really understood why I didn't need that anymore, is what inspired me to start the vegan cowboy boots. But then once you identify your passion, think about, what's in your wheelhouse today? What skills do you have? What experience do you have? What knowledge do you have where you can take that today and build upon that? We can't all be vegan entrepreneurs or just quit our day jobs to start a vegan business. It sounds, very luxurious and like it's an easy thing to do. And like I said, it's not. But what can you do today to start working towards that? Do you need to work at night to do that? Do you need to work on the weekends? And then you have to invest in yourself, invest in, whatever your passion is, whatever skills and experience you're missing, then invest in yourself to get that done. And a lot of times, people say, I don't have the resources, I don't have the time. Make the time and go to YouTube, because you can learn everything on YouTube. Everything is on
Yeah.
YouTube. So
Yeah. I call it YouTube University.
that's right, right? You can learn everything. So just that's something that I like to leave with people and to have them think about, is kind of some simple steps of how they can. The hardest thing for people to do is to get going, right? It's like, don't let fear be your stop sign. Just take some of those simple steps that I just mentioned and just get the ball rolling.
Kat, it has been absolutely amazing having you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your fun, spunky personality with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been a real joy, and I'm glad now that we've met and we get to be friends after this.
Yes, we're friends officially. Woo!
Power.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you.
That was Kat Mendenhall, vegan coach and purveyor of handmade vegan goods. If you have challenges holding you back from adopting a healthier and more compassionate lifestyle, reach out to Kat on Facebook, Instagram, or at katmendenhall.com. That's KatMendenhall.com. And if you sign up for her newsletter on her website, you can earn yourself a free copy of her recipe ebook called My Texas Vegan Kitchen. And if you're ready to fall in love with vegan leather goods and custom kick-ass cowboy boots, go check them out at her website, katmendenhall.com. And when you do, be sure to tell her you heard about it here on the Eating Like You Give a Damn podcast. If you're veg curious or are on the train to Veganville, be sure to join our community of rebels in the Eating Like You Give a Damn Facebook group for recipes and support. Request to join us at eatinglikeyougivadamn.com/group. If you want podcast updates so you can see what's coming up and to see what I like to eat, follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Eating Like You Give a Damn. That's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends so together we can help more people make informed decisions. New episodes release every Monday. And until next time, veg on, rebels.